So in today's video, we're going to go over what happened in 2022, what happened to prices, what happened to sales volume, what the trends were, what the interest rates were. But before we get into it, make sure you leave us a comment below on anything that you liked, or if you have any other topics you want us to cover.
Brainstorm.
Yes, we'll get into it. So we started 2022 loosening of COVID restrictions, inflation numbers coming out, a lot of economic changes. With that, so in January of 2022, we started still in the threes for interest rates. Of course, we're not lenders. We're just going in general. Of course, it depended on your credit score.
But we do have lender friends, so if you need lending, let us know.
The rates steadily started going up to combat, inflation and other factors for the economy. And then home prices for the last, I don't know how many years, but over the last few years have been going up. The worst of it, or the best of it, depending on if you're a seller or a buyer, was of course during COVID. There was just a ton of demand all across the nation, not just in Colorado Springs. But the rates going up, even though we're still low on supply, reduce the demand. And that's all it is supply and demand. And now we're sitting at 6-7% interest rates. There's just not as much demand because, your rate's higher, your payment's higher. A lot of people can't afford that. Consumer debt is pretty high. So there's all these factors that go into it that we kind of experienced in 2022. So we started, with still a strong market. Things were still selling over asking, appraisal gaps, people waiving inspections, which we don't recommend at all. And if you buy a house from us, we won't let you waive the inspection unless you are an inspector.
Your house will fall apart.
It won't fall apart, but we don't want to be responsible for you coming back and saying it's falling apart or something bad is going on, and then we'll have to tell you we told you so. But yeah, rates continually started going up. In June and September, we had some pretty high spikes where overnight the rates went almost up like 1%, which is a lot. So that decreased people's purchasing power. Their payment was going up, and then a lot of people just decided, we're not going to buy, we're going to keep renting, or they moved to a different area where the home prices were lower. So that was the main driver in the 2022 market, were the interest rates, some of the highest rates that we've seen in the last couple of years. And we hear of people always saying, well, when I bought a house, the rates were, 15%. Well, back then, whoever tells us this usually bought a house for like $80,000 or $100,000. So you can't really compare the two.
You think that COVID gave us like a false sense of
urgency,
hope and urgency?
Yes and no. I
feel like when COVID happened, a lot of people got sent home and they were working from home. And they realized that there were like people in California, for example, where they're working from home. Mm-hmm. And they're like, hey, I can do the same job somewhere a lot cheaper and get paid the same as, I was in California.
Yeah.
I think that drove a lot of people, especially from like Texas and California, Arizona.
Really all over the place.
So the rates were super low. People were getting awesome deals. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the well had to run dry at some point.
All right, so let's go a little bit more into the numbers now that we've talked about kind of what 2022 played out to be. We started still strong in January through May. I would say that we kind of hit the top of the market around April, May, June timeframe, and then it just started declining as far as like home sales, prices, demand. So interest rates were creeping up, and then the demand and home sales and prices were coming down. So to put everything in perspective, I'm going to give you November 2022 compared to November 2021 numbers. So let's get into it. For November 2021, we had active listings, so homes that were available and you could buy, around 850 listings for El Paso and Teller County. So that includes Colorado Springs, Monument, Peyton, Falcon, all those little, sub areas that go into the counties. November 2022, we had around 2,500. So that's an increase of around 185%. So what that, the numbers don't lie. What that tells us is, in 2021, November, the rates were in the twos. November 2022, the rates were probably in the 6s or 7s. So homes that were still available increased because a lot of sellers were like, oh crap, we missed our window. Now we need to hurry up and sell our house. Once you miss the window though, it's like you're chasing a ball that's rolling down a hill. You can never catch up to it really. Like the window is gone and you just have to readjust for the new market. But that's kind of why we ended up with that many active listings. Then as far as new listing versus sold list, November of 2021, we had around 1,200 new listings. And then November 2022, we had around 950. So that's down about 20%. Sold listings were 1,466. So around 1,500 sold in November of 21. And then in November of 22, around 940 for sold. So that is down almost 40%. And then for days on market, so days on market means how many days from the time that a new home was put on the market did it take to sell the house. In November of 21, the average was 14 days, which the average is 14 days because there's some $1 million homes in there and there's like crappy properties that didn't sell. So that kind of skews the average a little bit. Really, realistically, I would say
It was like a day or two.
at most price points under 800 or even 900,000, it was within a few days. If you were under 500, probably 24 hours to 48 hours and the house was sold.
Wasn't even on the market.
Yeah. November 2022, the average number of days is 35. And still that to me is low. So the other number for me seemed high and then 35 days seems a little bit low. Just because some homes have taken 60 to 90 days to get sold and some even more. So in November of 2021, you could sell whatever you wanted. I mean, it didn't have to be picked up. It didn't have to be clean. You could have deferred maintenance and people would buy it. In November of 22, that's not what we're seeing anymore. And that's kind of what has carried into the 2023 market. So if you're, putting your house on the market, and this is not just for Colorado Springs, if say you're moving to our area and you're selling your house in another state, chances are your agent, which if you don't have one, let us know. We can hook you up with someone. But now, you have to make sure that you paint the interior of your house neutral colors, that you're up to date on your maintenance, that you declutter, your yard looks good. So you can't just like blink and sell your house anymore. You actually have to put some work in.
And no matter what agent you use, like you're gonna tell if you have a good one or a bad one because they gotta actually work now.
Yeah.
Where, a year ago they didn't have to do much. They would just literally put it on the market and people would eat it up. But now you have to convince people to buy people's houses and let them know why it's a good deal, why it's a good area, and make the house beautiful again. I think during like the COVID years in 21, were people really staging houses? Like they weren't even wasting the time.
I was staging houses.
Like people
Not
weren't
all
really,
of them, but
yeah.
no.
But like now every house we go to is like staged and they're having open houses again, so you can go tour a bunch of houses.
Yeah.
So whatever agent you get, just make sure that they're freaking awesome at selling a house and they actually know what the hell they're doing.
What the heck they're doing.
Oh yeah, because houses aren't just selling themselves anymore.
Yeah.
Realtors are actually being realtors now. So
Now let's get to the nitty gritty. And the things everybody wants to know is the average sales price and the median sales price. Median is the most common and average is like the combined average. If you didn't pay attention in math and needed to know that. So average sales price in November of 2021 was in the low fives, so 506. And then the average sales price in November of 2022 was 525. So that's only about 3.5% increase over the year. So we kind of average itself out because we were still going up January through May, kind of in value. And then May through the end of the year, about 10% decrease in values, which to us is not a crash. So over the last 2 or 3 years, some people had increases in values of like 30 to 40% in 2 years.
Yeah,
So if
it's
you think
crazy.
about that, and then 10% coming down, then you're,
Still
say
up.
you were at 35%, now you're down 10, but you're still up overall 25%. That's why we always say that real estate is, you're not guaranteed a profit. I mean, it's for you to find a place to live, and then if you want to profit, you either have to time the market, which nobody can do. If they did time the market, they did it by pure luck, in my opinion. Or you have something long term, and that's how you get your return. So still overall, 3.6 for the whole year is not terrible, but that does account for the fact that we were still going up from January to like April or May. Then we kind of hit the top and it started coming down, not crashing. I know a lot of people are waiting for the crash. I don't think it's coming. We could be wrong. If we were wrong, we'll eat our words. 3.5% is not ideal, but it's more on average than like a 20% increase that some people were seeing in like 2020 and 2021, which is not sustainable. So 2022 overall, slower increase if you combine the high months and the low months. And I think 2023 will continue to level out, and then we might increase still a little bit at maybe the end of the year, especially if rates start coming down. But we'll have to wait and see. Those are our predictions. I don't think it's going to come down much lower in the prices beyond like the first 2 quarters. I feel like for the first quarter, we're still going to see some decreases because we have leftover inventory last year from 2022 where sellers were still like pricing, well, my friend sold their house for $450 and I don't want to list it for $400 because I want the extra $50,000, but the market's come down about 10% and they're just not being realistic. So I think we're going to continue to see price reductions, and
Big
that's
ones.
going to reflect into like the first and second quarter. And then when rates recover a little bit, I think it'll go back up because, we don't have a ton of inventory still. So if the rates go down, demand will probably crank up a little bit more and we'll see some increase in the prices, but not a ton. I think a normal amount will get to that balanced market that everybody talks about. So median sales price in 2021, at the end of 2021 was $450, and then at the end of 2022, $454. So that's not even a 1% increase year over year. So I think at the end of 2023, it'll be a little bit higher, but I think we're really getting into like a leveling out where, it's more even on the seller and buyer side, where you can sell a house for a reasonable price if you kept your house up, and then you can buy without needing to pay an appraisal gap and paying $50,000 over. So one other statistic I wanted to bring up, and I love stats and numbers, and Ricky over here could not care less, but so the National Association of Realtors, they record home sales prices and all that, and home sales volume and all the things. And in November of 2022, they recorded across the nation the lowest number of homes being sold since they started recording. So for them, the lowest on record. And I bet that if we look at the December numbers, probably in the next week or so, that December was probably even lower than November. So,
But usually December is, right?
I mean, it is because it's like the holiday
Christmas
stuff. But
and
then
New Year's.
with the rates what they are and just uncertainty, people not knowing what's going to happen, inflation, all these things,
Just lowers it even more.
people are just uncertain. And I don't blame them. I mean, if you don't know you're going to stay somewhere for a while, if you don't know, like, if you can afford the house, or if you're going to get a promotion or can afford something, then why would you spend that much money? I mean, probably starter price here is like in the 3s, 4s. I mean, that's a lot of money. That's almost $500,000. You don't want to make that investment if you don't know what your job is going to look like, if you're going to be laid off, and, overall the stability of everything. But yeah, that wraps up our 2022 review. My prediction for 2023, what's your prediction?
I think once summertime comes, it'll start picking up a lot more, and I think the rates will be a little bit lower. So I think more people will be buying, and the inventory will grow a little bit. It's been, I think once we hit like a year of the rates being a little bit higher, we'll have better inventory for more people and also more motivated sellers just because probably their stuff has been sitting there for a while. Like the one house that we found earlier, it got listed in July and it's still on the market. So it's been 6 months, almost 7 months, and I think it only lowered like 20,000.
Like I said, some of the house prices decreased by 10%. So if they start at top,
But
20,000, and I think the house was what, 420? They should really be at like 380 or 370. And so whoever you are, be realistic, work with your agent. If they have the data to support that you need to be at a lower price point, it's going to be painful because, you know, all your friends are going to say, you know, if they sold in anytime before May, they're going to brag to you about how much they got for their house. But
yeah, and question your agents. If
yeah,
you feel like something doesn't make sense, ask them why. There's no harm in it.
yeah,
They should be able to explain everything to you.
And make them show you the numbers. Numbers don't lie. That is it for our 2022 wrap up, and we're excited for 2023. We're ready to give some real advice. We're not going to tell you what you want to hear, but
No bull stuff.
make sure you like this video and you subscribe to our channel if you like this video. And like we said before,
Ring the bell.
no ringing bells. If you have any questions or topics you want us to cover, make sure you leave us a comment or send us a message, and we'll be sure to cover it.